Let's talk about tough and durable smartphones. While smartphones these days are a lot tougher than they are before, they are still quite sensitive devices. That means you do have to take care of them. So, no dropping, no really throw them at the wall or whatnot. And while there are smartphones that are very durable and tough, which you can drop or even throw at the wall, they're usually expensive and not to mention thick and bulky because of all that protection. But it seems OPPO wants to change that with the new A60. On paper, it's nothing too special. You get a decent but rather dated chipset, a dual rear camera, and a nice minimalist design. Then we got the price. Starting at 9,999 pesos, it is relatively affordable. What the OPPO A60 does have going for is military-grade shock resistance, which is not something you'd normally find on a budget smartphone. Still, the question remains, is the OPPO A60 worth picking over other budget smartphones under 10,000 pesos simply because it's tougher? Well, I'm Jose from Yugatech, and today let's find out by reviewing the all-new OPPO A60. Starting off with the design, there's nothing too special about the OPPO A60 that helps it stand out from its competitors. It features a typical brick design with a colorful back panel. The back panel itself looks nice, especially in ripple blue, which is the color of our review unit. If you want something a bit more stealthier or subtle, there is also a midnight purple colorway. The camera island is located on the upper left corner of the back panel. It houses the dual camera system despite having what looks like a triple camera system, which we'll talk more about later on. Now, as mentioned earlier, OPPO claims the A60 comes with military-grade shock resistance. Despite that, the back panel is made out of plastic, and weirdly, it doesn't feel that strong. You can easily bend some part laces if you press your hand hard enough. But more importantly, the frame does feel very tough and sturdy. In addition, the OPPO A60 comes with an IP54 rating for dust and water. As much as I wanted to throw this phone on the floor to test it out, like literally throw it there, I did feel bad for it. I also don't want to break a new phone before we finish shooting this video, so unfortunately I ended up dropping it a few times accidentally. Sorry, OPPO. Surprisingly, it still works well. There are no visible dings, dents, or scratches. But of course, try to be careful with your smartphone. It is only military-grade shock resistant, not indestructible, nor is it rated for salt or chlorinated water. Moving on, I like the layout of the phone because the volume rockers and the power button is found on the right side and it's easily accessible with one hand. At the bottom, you'll find a 3.5mm audio port, a USB-C port, and a loudspeaker. Meanwhile, the dual SIM, card slot, and microSD slot is on the upper right side of the phone. At the top, you do get another loudspeaker as well, so you get stereo speakers. Overall, it's a decent looking smartphone and not to mention sturdy. Nothing bad about it both in terms of design and construction. It's relatively light and slim too, especially for something that is quite sturdy, weighing just 186 grams and measuring 7.68mm thick. Flip the phone over, you're greeted by a 6.67-inch IPS LCD display. It's not the most vivid panel on the market, but it's quite decent for its price point. There are relatively thick borders all around too, with the bottom portion being a bit thicker than the others. Unfortunately, gamers won't be too fond of this display because it only comes with a 90Hz refresh rate. It's not the brightest too, but it does get the job done with only 950 nits of peak brightness. When it's really bright outside, especially on summer days like we have now, you might find the brightness a bit lacking. What I do like about it is that it comes with stereo speakers. It lacks a bit of clarity, especially when the volume is maxed out. However, the fact that it comes with stereo speakers is already a nice addition from OPPO. I mean, some more expensive smartphones don't even come with stereo speakers. If you are not fond of the speakers though, you do have a 3.5mm audio port, so just plug in your favorite pair of earphones or headphones and you're good to go. Overall, for the price, I can't really complain about the display and the speakers. The display and speakers are more than adequate for watching videos and playing light and easy games, assuming you don't really need the high refresh rate. And even at 90Hz, the animations are quite smooth. Now here comes the interesting bit. OPPO did say the body, well at least this phone, is military-grade tough resistant. But they didn't say what kind of glass is used for the screen or what kind of protection it has. So it makes me wonder, is the military grade rating just for the body and not the entire phone? If that's the case, then users, you should still be careful, especially if you plan on buying this phone. Moving on to the cameras, you get a dual rear camera on the OPPO A60. The layout may look like a triple rear camera setup, especially at first glance, but the last one at the bottom is actually the flash, so don't be fooled. The main shooter uses a 50 megapixel sensor which comes with PDAF and is paired with a 2 megapixel depth sensor. There's nothing to write home about too much about the camera quality, but it is relatively decent when you're shooting in well-lit environments or outside on a sunny day. You can even get some nice bokeh too without having to use portrait mode. At night or in low light conditions, however, the image quality does drop drastically. You end up losing a lot of details, and unfortunately, night mode doesn't really help. When using night mode, the photos end up looking heavily edited and smoothened out. It does help with the grain, but the trade-off is the reduction in clarity and detail and overall sharpness of the photo. For selfies, you do get an 8 megapixel front shooter. It is relatively decent, but it looks a bit too filtered for my liking. Just like the rear camera though, it isn't the best when you're shooting in low light. If you're not too OC about photo quality, then I guess it should be okay. In terms of videos, you can record up to 1080p at 30 FPS for both the front and rear cameras. Like the photos, you get decent quality video when you're shooting in the day or in well-lit environments. However, the quality does again drop at night or in low light conditions, and you get very grainy video. There's no night mode to help you too, and when there is zero light, you can barely make out the subject at all, and all you see is a lot of graining. For the price of the phone though, the camera isn't too bad, although I do wish it could be better. Still, just make sure you take photos in well-lit areas and you should be fine when taking photos with this phone. To give you a better idea though, check out some of the sample photos and videos we were able to capture with the OPPO A60 right here. Under the hood, the OPPO A60 is powered by a Qualcomm Snapdragon 680 chipset. It's not the most powerful chipset on the market, nor the most recent one. It's not even a 5G chipset, so you are just limited to 4G LTE. Our review unit comes with 8GB of RAM, which can be extended by an additional 8GB and 256GB of internal storage. If you find the storage lacking, you can expand it further via a micro SD slot. If you plan on using this phone for your usual everyday tasks, the OPPO A60 can handle it well despite running an older chipset and only 8GB of RAM. Even if you leave multiple apps running in the background, I never experience any lag, especially when I'm just browsing social media or watching videos, along with some simple multitasking features. In terms of gaming, I know it doesn't have a 120Hz refresh rate display, but it did run the usual light games such as Mobile Legends and Asphalt 9 without any issues. But what did surprise me was the fact that it could run graphic-intensive titles like Genshin Impact. I did have to set most of the graphics settings to low in order to have a more enjoyable gameplay experience, but nonetheless, it's still an impressive feat for a Snapdragon 680. That being said, the phone did heat up after around 30 minutes of playing Genshin Impact. When the phone heated up, it did slightly affect gameplay with occasional stutters and frame rate drops. But still, this isn't exactly a gaming phone, and being able to run Genshin in itself is a nice feat. For those who want to check out the benchmark numbers, we've got them flashed on the screen right now. Now, as with all OPPO phones, the A60 runs on ColorOS. Specifically, it uses ColorOS 14, which is based on Android 14. If you have ever used an OPPO phone before, you will definitely feel right at home. There aren't too many special features to work with, especially on the A60, but you do get the usual split screen and floating windows, which I find is enough. What isn't great though is the load of bloatware that comes pre-installed with the A60. There are so many apps that are just useless, at least to us, and we ended up deleting them out of the box. I do wish OPPO toned it down with the bloatware because, you know, do you really want some apps that you won't use on a phone, especially on a brand new phone? In terms of battery, the OPPO A60 uses a 5000 mAh battery pack, which is typical of what you would expect from a smartphone in this category. With that, it does last quite a long time. I mean, it did last me an entire day, even though I ran several benchmarks, played Genshin, and even browsed the net and watched some videos. This phone will last you quite a while before you need to recharge. And when you do need to recharge, you do have 45-watt fast charging when using the supplied power brick and cable. According to OPPO, it can recharge the phone to 50% in just 30 minutes. Now that we've said everything, overall, nothing really stands out too much about the OPPO A60. It looks decent, performs well for day-to-day use, and packs a relatively long-lasting battery. The only thing it does have going for it is its military-grade shock protection and durability. Well, at least for the body. This makes it perfect for businesses or users that need a tough and durable smartphone that will surely last but isn't too high spec and not to mention expensive. It's also great for kids or users with butterfingers who might accidentally find themselves dropping their phones quite often. But outside of that, the budget smartphone market has become a lot more competitive, and there are certainly better equipped phones now in the same price range. So if you want to get the most out of your money, the OPPO A60 definitely isn't it. But if you do want a tough and durable smartphone at an affordable price and don't really care about the specs, then this phone might just fit the bill for you. I mean, if you have a business like a small business and just need a phone for Gcash, all of that, this is what it's made for. With a starting price of 9,999 pesos for the 8 plus 128GB variant and 11,999 pesos for the 8 plus 256GB variant, it's hard to find another smartphone as durable as this one in its price range. But what do you think of the OPPO A60? Did its tough body and exterior convince you, or would you rather get something else for the same price? Whatever the case, share your thoughts in the comments below. And as always, if you enjoyed this video or at least found it informative, do drop a like and subscribe to our channel to watch more. Also, don't forget to follow us on our social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, X, and TikTok. And of course, visit yugatech.com to stay updated with the latest tech news and reviews. Once again, this has been Jose, and we'll catch you guys next time.